Alrighty, so here we are at week 12. I know 12 weeks hard to imagine, but it's true. And you'll finish up section 9, the second part of that, and then on your dev. So I'm going to go ahead and just go over the things in this requirements. I had posted them right after dev 0. Right, so take your code, and I know some of you are thinking maybe I'll do something else. That's fine. Just keep in mind if you do that, you do need to meet the minimum the qualifications, the requirements for Dev 0. You still have to have logic. You still have to have arrays. Won't be that hard, but you'll have to have functions. Of course, can't imagine writing without them at this point. I'm guessing. I don't know. Maybe you could tell me, but so you want to get input from the users, and this is at minimum, at least. Definitely do more if you can because it's more realistic, but at minimum. I don't even tell you what kind of inputs here, but you do have to also do validation, right? I'll talk about that in a minute. Right here, form validation. Now, on my dev 1, I ended up doing form validation a little differently. But as long as, and it has to be something above required. Okay, required is the minimal, and I don't consider it full validation. We know now how to write that, or you can research how to write that, but whichever way, and make sure you clear the input fields once the form has been submitted. Now, what I would add to there is on your form validation errors, if you do print them, render them to the screen, then make sure you clear them when you get a good submission. So in addition to the input fields, clearing on a form submission, make sure validation code gets cleared as well. Okay, so store the information and associated dates. You don't have to use moments. You could use something else. I'm not going to require that, especially since moments is definitely growing out of favor. I've had a discussion over Discord about other ways to do it, but if you want to use moments, totally fine as well. But you do have to use local storage and UUID. And that's so that we have persistent data, right? So this is your read part, right? So if you kind of see, this is your CRUD part, this is your read. So once you get the user input, you store it and then you read it back, you render it to the screen. Give the user the ability to edit their input or something related. This is where, you get to be a little more creative on the update, the CRU, right? So down here, I'm listing CRUD. So, you can think about this because I've done rating. What else have I done? Mostly rating, but other things as well. Rating in different contexts, I suppose, right? Process data and present it back to the user. That's still part of the C, but just saying it so it makes it hopefully more clear. And then, I've kind of summarized this here is make sure you have all CRUD operations. And here's the key, right? So implement at least 2 examples of JavaScript not covered in this course, okay? And for this, the intention is for you to write your own code, right? If you do use code from somewhere else, then give a reference. Like what I'd want to see is the URL for where you had the example, and I would want to see that you've modified it, okay? Right, and that's what I'm saying here, right? Just copying the code and don't, for example, let me just read what I wrote actually. If you do use code that is not your own, you need to give the reference and know that depending on how you implement the code, you could lose points here, okay? Because the idea is if you get a reference from somewhere, right, then the idea is you customize it for yourself. That's a way you show that you've learned something, right? So I just say this. So you need to have 2 examples. They could be one-liners. They could be a whole function of something not covered in this course. I use map and reduce in my dev 1. I actually rewrote those to remove moments.js, which was a really fun thing for me to do. So use arrow functions. unless you can make a case for not using them. And at this point, you should hopefully know that the only case for not using them is if you need the this variable. And even in that case, you can find a way around it. You need to handle errors and input errors. Now, handling errors, right, is really the try catch block. Is handling application level errors. We've already talked about input errors with validation, so that's a little bit of a repeat. 95% of your code really should be within a function or within an event listener. Okay. And then implement strict mode, right? So now that you've just learned about it this week, it just makes when we're writing not the most well constructed JavaScript, it makes that clear, right? So make sure you're there, right? Make sure you have functions, right? Okay. Has meaningful output and follows the Airbnb JS style. We've already used this last time. You have to have some CSS for a good user experience. It doesn't have to be a lot, right, of CSS, but just some to where it's something beyond a blank or a unstyled page. And then, like before, right, you're going to need to walk me through the code using DevTools, right? And I say here, if you're going to change it, discuss with me. But as long as you understand that if you decide to do something else, it still needs to meet the minimum qualifications. But that shouldn't be a problem. We've handled almost all of them in this section as well. But if you want to talk to me, you totally can. I would enjoy that. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say about this week as far as Dev 1. The schedule has been released. I look forward to chatting with you about it. Remember that you do have a week, right? So it does have to be submitted. I come into here, right? And on the schedule, I always do this so you can hopefully clearly see this. Right, so here's when it's due. It's due 10/27. Really, by the time I wake up a week from tomorrow morning. Actually, I'm recording this a little early. And then you will have the rest of this time, right, to complete your code review. But just as a little bit of a repeat, the reason some of you, and I hope you're motivated to come talk to me before the due date, is that coming in for an assistance or even for a review, if we find something, you can still change it before the due date. Okay. You do not need to give me Git hack links. Just give me a link to your directory. Do make sure you have a dev folder. Within there should be your dev 0 and now your dev _1. Should be in separate, same level as the dev folder. That's just the way you should have it, but you do not need to give me Git hack links. Okay, I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions. This would be a perfect time to ask on this week 12 attendance. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. I look forward to seeing many of you this week and next.